Con artists, what is the most successful scam you have pulled? I may or may not have my high school diploma, but I definitely have a college degree. I have been going with the line, well, I needed a high school diploma to get into the military, so I must have one. My school's admittance officer has been searching for proof of my high school diploma for about 3 years now.
It's kind of funny how things play out sometimes. You can have one foot in the door and still manage to sidestep the usual paths. Just telling people you have what you need even if no one can find it. I mean, that sounds like a solid plan, especially if you're moving on with life. It's all about experiences anyway, right?
I watched my friend's dad steal a large, expensive generator from Home Depot. He put on a flat cart and just walked out cradling a small dog with one arm and holding a canceled credit card and an unrelated receipt in his teeth. He nodded at the guy at the door, who checks receipts, and just left. That was the day I knew what it was to be flabbergasted.
I remember a time when I was with my friend's dad at a store. He decided to grab a big generator and just walked out like it was normal. He had a small dog in one arm and a credit card in his mouth, just nodding at the guy by the exit. It was such a bizarre sight. I didn't know whether to laugh or be shocked. That moment stuck with me for a while.
Back in college, we would occasionally have parties where we sold shots to make some extra cash. This one particular night, I was on bar duty and the hard stuff was running low. In a panic, I ran into the kitchen and found this pre-mixed alcohol in the fridge. I started selling shots to people, and it proved to be really popular. So popular that I gave it a name, Woodpecker, and started raising the price to keep it from disappearing so fast. At one point, the shots were hovering around $5 to $10. The next day, we were tallying everything, and I mentioned how we made about $80 off this one particular bottle. That's when my roommate started laughing his ass off. It turns out I was selling non-alcoholic whiskey mix. He bought it at the grocery store for about $3.50. Whoops.
That's a funny story. It's wild how you thought you were making bank off that mix. It must have felt great at the moment, thinking you had this popular drink everyone loved. And then the reality check hit when your roommate told you it was just a cheap mix. Definitely a memorable college moment. You gotta appreciate the creativity, even if it didn't turn out as planned. Sometimes, those mistakes lead to the best memories.
One time, in high school, there was a 25-cent soda machine outside of Walmart. I bought a soda, went inside Walmart, and the old lady at the door put a sticker on the can. I then put that sticker on a name brand can of soda and snicker my way out of the store with my pilfered pop. Been leading the thug life ever since. Edit. I drank the original soda and then properly disposed of it in the recycling bin before my heist. I'm not a monster, guys.
That sounds like one of those classic high school moves. Just a simple soda run turns into a mini heist. It's funny how small things like that can feel so rebellious at the time. Recycling that can makes it even more interesting though, like you had some sort of code to follow. Those little stories stick with you, like a badge of mischief from your youth. It's all part of growing up, I guess.
Don't know if this counts as a scam, but I got about $30 from a vending machine. I stuffed some paper towel up there in the morning so that it would catch people's change. They'd go to the cafeteria and be reimbursed, so I didn't feel like I was stealing from my classmates, just the school. Lunchtime, I took out the paper, and it was like winning at a slot machine.
Sounds like you had a little hustle going on. It's interesting how you justified it by thinking you weren't really taking from your classmates. That thrill of finding cash in an unexpected place must have felt kind of exciting. Just goes to show how creative people can get with vending machines. I hope nobody noticed, or if they did, they just shrugged it off as a common thing.
A year ago, I was poor as fuck, and my roommate got a coupon from an online food delivery service. $8 off your meal, with no minimum spending. I live in Mexico, where $8 can buy you lots of food, valid once per account. So for 2 weeks, I'd create an account using a 10-minute mail service and order food for free or at most for 50 cents. To make things more interesting, I lived in an apartment complex with like 150 different apartments, so each time I'd choose a different app number and then ask the delivery guy to leave the food with the receptionist for convenience. I think I conned like $200 that way. TLDR, I ordered takeout for free for 2 whole weeks.
That's a pretty clever move. Can't say I've done anything like that myself, but I get it. When you're tight on cash, you find ways to make it work. Using a new account every time and playing around with the apartment numbers is a smart way to avoid suspicion. In a place with that many apartments, it sounds like a good plan. Sometimes necessity really does bring out the creativity in people.
Over a decade ago, a universally despised company whose name I shall omit was offering people one iTunes song, worth 99 cents, for their email address so they could spam market their products to them. The way it worked was they sent you an email, and you had to click the link to confirm that the email was valid, and then they sent you a gift code for one song. The way they checked you hadn't done this more than once was through cookies. God bless their hearts. Deleted the cookie. Blocked the website from setting new cookies. Opened dozens of free email accounts. Automated the sign-up process via macros, and had 3 computers running 24/7, getting about 15,000 codes, until $despised_company ran out after a couple days. I had to spend many dozens of hours selling bundles of codes on eBay at a 30% discount. So it ended up requiring quite a bit of work on my part, but I did end up clearing $10,000 after a few months and use it to take my then GF on a trip to New York. No regrets. Emoticono cara sonriente.
That's an interesting way to make some cash. I remember a friend who did something similar with a promotion from a phone company. He signed up with a bunch of fake emails too. It took him a while to manage everything, but he ended up making a decent profit selling the deals online. In the end, though, he just used the money for some games and meals with friends. Kinda funny how those things work out.
When I was younger, I got a summer job as the ice cream man for an ice cream truck company. The pay was super shitty. I received 0 wage, had to pay for half the gas, and only got a third of the profit from selling the popsicles, which isn't a lot considering a popsicle is only $4 or $5, and you have to drive around all day to find very few customers. To supplement my income, one bought a bunch of bulk boxes, no-name brand popsicles, creamsicles, fudgesicles, drumsticks, water, chips, ECT, and whenever people wanted to buy the company's products, I would give them my items and keep all the money. They eventually fired me because my sales were so low.
Sounds like a rough gig. Working as an ice cream man for no real pay is tough. It's wild how you tried to make it work with the no-name popsicles. Creative hustle, but I guess they caught on. Getting fired for low sales after trying to supplement your income is just adding insult to injury. It's a good lesson on how not every hustle pays off.
Free movies in theaters in high school. Me and a friend realized that theaters will give you a refund for as long as the movie has not started yet, even if the ticket is ripped. We also realized that the person ripping the tickets gave less than 0 shits about their job and would rip a ticket without looking at the movie time. Put these two together and you can go to the theater, buy a ticket for a movie that starts in 3 hours. Walk in and get it ripped and go see any movie you wanted. After your movie is done, you just go to the counter and make up some excuse for why you can't see the movie. They give you a full refund and you walk out of there with 0 money spent. Also, you could get the really nice fancy seats for free.
That's a clever way to game the system. I remember trying something similar with a friend in high school. We bought tickets, then just hopped into whatever movie we wanted. The ticket rippers didn't care, so it worked out. We'd get comfortable seats and watch whatever was playing. Sometimes we'd even sneak in snacks. It was a fun little adventure, and we felt like we were pulling one over on the whole theater. Good times.
I'm kinda late, so I didn't know if this will get seen. But one time I was taking in video games to trade into GameStop, probably to buy weed at the time. I had a few whatever games in Mario Galaxy. The guy was scanning the games and asked the dudes behind me if they were looking for something. They responded with that and pointed at Mario Galaxy. The guy told them a used one was in 39 whatever cents. I told the guy I'll sell it to you right now for $40. The guy at GameStop told us to make the deal outside. Then I got weed.
I get it. Sometimes you just need a quick way to make some cash. I had a buddy who did the same thing once. He bought a game just to trade it in immediately for cash. He ended up using that to grab food. It's pretty wild how these deals happen, but it works out. At the end of the day, it's all about getting what you need. Just gotta be quick about it.
Some fool gave me gold for an utterly ludicrous and silly comment. I spend my Reddit career writing dozens, nay, hundreds of thoughtful, intelligent, compassionate, and reasoned responses to many people. Most of these go completely unnoticed. Sometimes it seems I am the only person to read them at all, but then I make one silly fart joke and get gold. This place is like a loony bin for humanity's random thoughts and feelings, a place where reason is drowned in impulse and the slow decay of madness grows huge and red. Reminds me of waiting for the perfect moment to bite into a badly inflamed pustule.
It's funny how that works. You can put so much effort into something meaningful, and it's like no one cares. Then you toss out a random joke, and people love it. Social media can be strange that way. It's kind of like life. Sometimes the little, silly moments get the biggest reactions. Makes you wonder if people even read deeper stuff or just scroll for quick laughs.
I was probably in middle school, and me and my friend were going to the movies. We bought 2 tickets, but before we could get into the theater, I lost mine. So I took my friend's ticket and entered the theater and kept the ticket stub in my pocket. Then waited 5 minutes and went up to the ticketing guy and said that I lost my stub and I wanted to buy some popcorn. The snack area was outside the booth in this theater, and asked if he could just remember my face. He said okay, so I went outside, gave me friend the stub, and bought some popcorn and enjoyed the movie.
That's a classic move. Losing a ticket but still getting in by borrowing a friend's is pretty slick. I remember a similar situation with a buddy. We snuck in after losing one ticket too, but it was more about the thrill of being there. Makes you think how creative you can get when you really want something. The popcorn was probably the best part though.
Guy tried to scam me out of $450 for a steering wheel I sold. So I scammed him, ended up with $450 from him anyways, and then sold it to someone else for $250. Also a texting kid rear into my car. Really all it really needed was a respray of the bumper cover. He was a pain in the ass the whole time, wanting to pay me under the table, and only like $50. I own a body shop, so I just wrote up a ridiculous repair bill, including using OEM parts, new bumper beam, cover, expensive paint, tons of labor, new exhaust that he dented too. Sorry, but when you hit someone's car, picking how their car gets repaired is not up to you.
Sounds like you had quite the experience. That scammer got what was coming to him. Taking advantage of someone trying to take advantage of you is fair game. And then dealing with that kid after the accident? Not cool how he thought he could lowball you. People just don't get that when they cause damage, they need to be responsible. Your approach makes sense. You know your worth, and it seems like he learned that the hard way.
Let the record show I did not do this. However, I worked with people who did. Wait tables at a corporate restaurant that offered coupons in the newspaper every month. They drove around and bought all the newspapers from all over town on the days the coupons dropped. When a customer paid for dinner that applied to a coupon but didn't bring one, the waiter would apply their own coupon after the fact. The customer still paid the same price, but the corporation paid out for the coupon's value. This resulted in giant cash tips the company never knew about.
That's a wild setup. It's funny how people find ways around the system. I once knew a guy who did something similar at a fast food place, pocketing extra cash by messing with the register. Guess it just shows that where there's a will, there's a way, right? Not saying it's right or wrong, but it's interesting to see how people navigate those situations. Just another day in the restaurant biz, I guess.
I'm not really a con artist, but back in the day, if we needed money, we would dress up in basketball jerseys and hand out fake pamphlets asking for donations for our Christian basketball league because it was losing money. Then we would ask their name and write it down all official-like. Made like $40 in 2 hours and smoked it all away.
That's a pretty wild story. It's interesting how creative some people can get when they need cash. Dressing up and pretending like that is a bold move. I guess it's all in good fun, but also shows the lengths some will go to for a quick fix. Ended up spending it all on smoking, though. That part's common too. Sometimes you just want to enjoy the moment, no matter how you got there.
When my husband was younger, like 19, he used to work at Target, and when he would help people to their car, he would make up a story and tell people he had a little daughter, that she was about to start kindergarten in the fall, etc. He actually got the occasional $20 bill, cause people felt badly for him.
That's kind of funny. Your husband being that creative just to earn some extra cash is pretty clever. I guess people have their reasons for helping out, and sometimes a little story can make someone feel more generous. It's interesting how small things can connect us, even if it's just a made-up tale about a kid.
In elementary school, we had S reading program that if we read a certain amount of time, we would get prizes. In order to get the prizes, you had to have your parents sign a slip that said that you did indeed read whatever amount of time you did. So one week, what I did was I wrote down that I read like an hour during the week, which isn't a lot, and then I gave the slip for my mom to sign, so I could turn it in. After my mom signed the slip, I erased that I read an hour and wrote in something huge like I read 20 hours that week. The next day at school, I have the slip to my teacher, and the prize was one of those huge Hershey's Kisses. Totally worth it.
That's a classic move. Sneaking in those extra hours for a big prize. I remember trying to pull similar stuff back in school. Just a quick change on the paper, and it looked legit. Fun how we pushed limits for candy. At least you got a Hershey's Kiss. Those things were like gold back then. Small victories like that made school a bit more interesting.
Middle school. This was the late 80s/early 90s before cell phones, so there was always a line at the payphone in the commons area during lunch. One day, I needed to use the phone. Waited in line, plunked in my quarter, and nothing happened. Couldn't dial out. Put in another, same thing. Went to the office and told them what happened. They said that sometimes if people put their money in and then tried to dial before the deposit registered, it would jam things up, and if you waited a few minutes without trying to use the phone, the money would get kicked back out in the coin return. But when it got jammed, people would still come and pour money in it, and it would just sort of pile up in there. So I always made sure to get to the payphone early during lunch and intentionally jam it, and then stick around and let other people plug more coins into it, and then wait for it to kick back the coins after they'd given up and walked off.
I remember something similar from middle school. The payphone was always a hassle. I waited my turn, put in my quarter, then waited. Nothing happened. I heard about it getting jammed before, so I decided to take advantage of that too. I'd watch as kids would get frustrated and leave their coins behind. It felt a bit wrong, but it was just easy money, you know? Those were simpler times.
Well, I sort of didn't mean to, but I was buying a food mixer. They had about 5 different versions at the store I was at. I put one in my cart and went up to customer service to ask about the differences and stuff. While I got up there, the lady said, "Are you returning, sir?" I was all at the, "Yes, I am." $350 store credit. Bam. Going to hell.
That's awkwardly funny. You went in planning to buy something simple and ended up with a big store credit for a return you didn't actually make. It's one of those moments where you just roll with it. Like, how do you even explain that to your friends later? It's no big deal, but you have to laugh at how unexpected these situations can turn out. Life really has its twists.
I once scammed a scammer who was trying to sell gift cards on Craigslist for one-half price. Their scam was write down the card number ahead of time and use it to buy something online right after you pay them. So you could call the number and verify the balance when you buy it, but by the time you try to use it, the money would be gone. I had a feeling they were up to something. So instead of calling the number, I had a purchase ready to check out on my phone. I typed in the card number and checked out to verify the card, then paid them the cash. $200 for a $400 gift card. But the look on their face was priceless.
That's an interesting twist. I get the vibe of a classic hustle. You had a hunch and played it smart, which worked out in your favor. Scammers usually think they have the upper hand, but you turn the tables on them. It's definitely a memorable moment when they realize they got played instead. Sometimes you just have to think outside the box and trust your instincts.
My buddy got expelled from our boarding school late senior year. My group of friends was always close to the faculty and administration, and we knew the person who fills out the transcripts. When he got his transcript in the mail, it had the normal left and graduated dates on it. He's probably one of the few people who didn't officially graduate HS, but has an engineering degree from a decent college.
That's an interesting situation. It's wild how connections can change things. Your friend managed to get through without the official graduation, which is rare. It's kind of funny to think he's got that engineering degree while not technically graduating high school. Just goes to show that sometimes, the rules can be bent a little, especially when you know the right people.
I helped a GF with a scanned and photoshopped degree for her wall. She went through her college graduation ceremony and already had a job lined up as a social worker working with kids. Surprise, the adult who is counseling you on keeping in school and dealing with life was 2 credits short of graduation, and the diploma on the wall is a fake. She promised me she would finish it that next semester through extension. I don't believe her.
That's interesting. A friend of mine did something similar. She wanted to impress everyone with her degree and rushed into the job market. She got a cool job right after the ceremony, but later I found out she hadn't actually graduated yet. She kept saying she'd finish it, but who knows? It's tough when you're trying to establish yourself but you haven't fully done what you needed to do.
A place I worked at had a Manhattan bagel guy come in with a stack of like 200 coupons. Buy a small coffee, get a free bagel with any spread. He told me to pass them out to people who work there. Well, I love Manhattan Bagel and just took the whole promo book. I spent the whole year getting free bagels at the same Manhattan Bagel.
That sounds like a solid deal. Free bagels for a year is a nice perk. I remember a time when I had a similar thing at a local cafe. They had a punch card system, and I always made sure to grab one. Ended up getting my coffee for free after a few weeks. Little things like that can really make your day-to-day routine better.
My brother got really wealthy in Neo points by guessing a rich person's password. Username was Elmo something. Password was Sesame Street 1234. I threatened to report him unless I got a 15% cut. He used his wealth to buy ultra-rare items, paintbrushes, and stuff. He starts a raffle club. He grossly overpriced normal items in his shop and advertised that one of the items is a winner, and the person to buy that item would get a rare item. He sold all of his items extremely quickly, making disgusting profit. He had 20-plus dummy accounts that he would then give the rare item to, only to return it to himself later when people would notice.
It's wild how some people hustle in games. My brother found a way to make serious neopoints just by getting lucky with a password. I wasn't about to let him keep all that cash, so I asked for a cut. He went on to create this whole raffle thing, marking up regular items and tricking people. It's crazy how quick he sold everything, using dummy accounts to play the system. Makes you think about how far some will go.
I sold the parking permits at the school. They drug-tested kids for parking passes. No one checked the logs of the cash. They sold for $50 a semester, and they had unlimited passes. My competitor sold photocopied passes with no legit records for $80. I got $150 for a legit pass and records to back it up. They caught and expelled my competitor, and I made about $5,000 that year.
That's an interesting story about turning a simple idea into something profitable. It's kind of surprising how opportunities can pop up in unexpected places. The whole situation shows how some can take risks while others play by the rules. I guess the lesson here is always look for a way to make things work in your favor, even if it means thinking outside the box.
When I was level 3, a guy watched me die fighting a goblin. He ran over to Lumbridge Castle, where I respawned, and he gave me a set of iron armor and an iron scimitar. He also took me to Al-Kharid and gave me like 500 GP. I thought I was fucking loaded. Then he logged off, and I forgot to add him, so I never saw him again. Got him.
That's a solid memory. Getting help like that when you're just starting out is pretty cool. It's always nice to meet someone willing to lend a hand, especially in a game. The feeling of being loaded when you first get some gear or currency is pretty relatable. It's a bummer you didn't add him, though. Those moments can really make the game feel special.
Am I the only one that thinks that margin trading skill sounds like complete bullshit? Seriously, what other use could you ever get out of it practically than scamming the hell out of someone or buying something for less than it actually costs? I don't mean that it sounds fake, it just seems like a really shitty thing to put in a game. Why?
I get where you're coming from. I remember a friend who got really into trading in games. He swore it would make him rich, but all it did was stress him out. He ended up losing a lot of in-game currency trying to play the market. It felt pointless in the end, just a way to exploit the system. Sometimes, simpler things in games are more fun.
This isn't scamming, but a few years back during one of the Halloween events I would trade for the stupid special items super cheap on one server, then trade them for 5 times as much on other servers. They were stupid masks or something and were brand new, and no one had any idea what they were worth. I know it's a pretty lame story, but I would never scam someone in an actual trade.
Sounds like a fun way to make some quick in-game currency. It's interesting how people can overlook value during events. Those masks were probably just seen as cool collectibles. You found a niche market and took advantage of it. It's not scamming since you were trading fair, just capitalizing on the lack of knowledge. Smart move, though I bet the excitement of trading was better than the items themselves.
I remember at my local GameStop, a kid trading in a bunch of games like Mass Effect COD 4 and Halo Reach. They were offering him 17 trade-in for the lot. I was going to buy Halo Reach for 18 alone. While he was thinking about the offer, I offered the kid 20 cash for the lot. 42 more quid got COD 4 and Mass Effect, and the kid got money and GameStop got screwed.
That was a solid move. It's funny how those trade-in offers can be so low. You saw an opportunity and took it. The kid probably didn't realize what he was giving up, but you ended up with some good games for a good price. GameStop always seems to have those ridiculous trade-in values, so you came out ahead. Nice little win-win for both you and the kid.
Can I just say for anyone reading this, please don't try to pull a stunt like this. For my 17th birthday, my mom saved up and bought me tickets to see Rosencrantz and Guildenstern in Sydney because I was obsessed with Tom Stoppard, but the tickets never came and the seller deleted their profile. They couldn't afford to get me anything else. And while I was upset, I still almost cry thinking about the look on my mom's face when she realized she'd been tricked and she couldn't get me anything for my birthday.
That's rough. It's tough when you expect something special, and it just doesn't happen. The disappointment can hit hard, especially when someone you care about is affected too. It's a good reminder to appreciate the efforts people make for us, even when things don't go as planned. Those moments can stick with us, reflecting the bond we have with our loved ones.
He bought a bunch of $10 phones and traded them in for $100 gift cards. After that, he got a bunch of iPhones, which were free with a 2-year contract, canceled the contracts, and paid for the termination fees with the gift cards. Essentially, he got a bunch of iPhones for cheap and can now sell them for very good profit.
That's a smart move. He saw a way to turn a small investment into something bigger. It's interesting how people find loopholes to make things work in their favor. Just a bit of planning and understanding the system, and he came out ahead. It's a good example of finding value where others might not see it.
My buddy brought a spray bottle and a mini fan to Sarstock in Toronto back when we were in high school, and people paid $2 a tunny for a refreshing spray in the face to cool down. I suppose I should add bottles of water were being sold for like $10. Also, people threw said $10 water bottles at Justin Timberlake when he joined Mick Jagger on stage. That had to have been worth the money.
That sounds like a solid way to make some cash. Charging $2 for a spray when water is pricey is smart. It's wild how people spend so much on something so basic. And throwing water bottles at Justin Timberlake? That's iconic. I mean, it's not every day you get to cool down and celebrate music at the same time. Your friend definitely had the right idea. It was about making the best out of a hot situation.
My friend knew about that after some quick Googling. He chose it because it smelled bad, had a yellow color, and was supposed to actually work. He figured that if he used just water, it'd be a matter of time until he was caught. So he found something that was really cheap but could pass off as fertilizer. I highly doubt it did anything at all, because you need a whole lot more apple vinegar for it to be of any use in the gardening.
That's an interesting approach your friend took. Using something that seems harmless but smells bad is pretty clever, I guess. It's funny how we often try to find shortcuts in gardening. But yeah, I can't imagine apple vinegar being effective for plants. Sometimes it's just better to go with the proper stuff instead of experimenting with random solutions. Gardening can be more straightforward if you stick to the basics.
So what, Mulder? Some kid got screwed over on some trading card. That's all it is. They want you to think that's Scully, but the fact is no human would give that much money for a Paris. I want you to run that car down to forensics and see what you can find. I bet you'll see traces of alien DNA all over it. In the meantime, I've got some questions for you, /quick_man.
It's funny how some people get so invested in trading cards. I remember a friend got really upset over a rare card being damaged. He thought it was worth a fortune, but in the end, it was just a card. Sometimes, we get caught up in the hype and forget it's just a piece of paper. In the end, it's about the fun and not the money.
I'm currently being billed monthly for Netflix, Hulu, Xbox Live, HBO, Optimum, Dollar Shave Club, Avid, After Effects, as well as my auto payments for credit cards, utilities, etc., and honestly probably a couple more things I've forgotten about. So yeah, I definitely can understand a new charge popping up and just not investigating it. Gym membership.
Yeah, that sounds familiar. I went through a phase where I was subscribed to a ton of services. You forget about those small ones until they hit your bank account. It adds up quick. I even had a gym membership I barely used. Sometimes it's just easier to let it slide than to keep track of everything. I finally had to sit down and cut some stuff out. It felt good to simplify things.
Please consider subscribing if you enjoyed. Love.